Hello everyone, I'm Kibitz and welcome back to Satisfactory, where today we're going to be doing our episode 50 world tour, going over everything we've done in the past 25 episodes to catch you up to speed, or if you're new, to show you what the heck is going on here, brother. And also, I'll be providing you guys with a world download so you can check out my world for yourselves. However, there is some super important information you need to know if you want to download my world, so I'll talk about that later in the video. But right now, we gotta get rocking and rolling on this tour because a lot has happened these last 25 episodes, so remember to leave a like. But anyway, let's do a quick recap of episodes 0 to 25. And we're not gonna be going over every single detail of the first 25 videos because that would make this video way too long, and I've already done a recap on that. So the episodes 0 to 25 recap video is in the description below, but TLDR, we started in the desert biome, which was completely revamped with update 3. So we went there because it was cool. And what we did was we started with Mark 1, 2, and 3 starter bases. So these were ugly looking things that are just floors on floors on floors, nothing really measured out, just to get us to Mark 4 belts and Mark 2 miners. So those are the two main things we wanted before we started on our main base. And once we got them, that's what we did. We started with the very bottom of our main base that we're working on right now, and we started setting ourselves up for the late game, wherein we had about 42,000 megawatts of turbo fuel power online, and we consolidated all of our power into one main power fuse box area. So all the power in our world is centralized here, and can be controlled from this point in case of a power outage. And that's pretty much it for the first 25 episodes. That brings us now to today. And before we start with the actual tour part, there are a bunch of questions I almost always get in the comments, so I thought I'd just go over them. Number one, a lot of people wonder, why the heck is there this other character here? Like, how did it get here? What's up with that? That's super weird. And pretty much, this character got here due to an update to the game. I forget which one, it was some random patch, but it caused me to spawn in again and leave my old character model here. And since I always log out here, this is just where it ended up. So decided not to kill it, which you can do, but I thought it was pretty iconic and cool looking, so I left it. And yeah, just because of that weird patch, that's why that's there. Then another common question I get is, why is everything always red? Like I build something new and it's red. Well, when you change the first color on the color gun here, like if I edit this, it will change all of the colors, like the default colors in the world. So say I decided this would be green, right? Boop, boom. Now everything is literally green. And now if I build a new wall, it will be that default color. Very cool. And then whenever you want to change it, all you have to do is change that default color again, and we can make our base like any color we possibly would want. Like Twitch purple, boom. Base is purple, base is blue, base is like a weird yellow. And yeah, you're catching my drift. So hope that helps some of you guys out. Usually these are my colors, 360, 0.98, and 0.95, and then just white as a secondary. Cool. And then another common question I get is, what are the dimensions of my base? Because a lot of people want to try and recreate it. And the dimensions way down at the bottom are 65 by 65, approximately. So 65 tiles in that direction, 65 tiles in that direction. And it just gets smaller as we move up. However, if you do want to recreate my base, I would recommend building it in 100 by 100 instead of 65, because oh, but I run into space issues a lot. That's probably my biggest regret in building this, is it's too small. So heads up for you guys. Oh, and some more cool base info here, but I've uploaded my map to the Satisfactory calculator website to see how many platforms and things we have, and it's a lot, over 100,000. Yeah, we've built a lot. Cool to see those numbers, and also kind of cool to see like the world and like the beasts and all the things we've created there as well. And last little thing before the tour is, a lot of people always ask me, how the heck am I like flying? How the heck do I do all these crazy things in my world? Why is it permanently day? And TLDR, it's through mods. I'm gonna have a mod list down in the description below, so you can go and copy the ones that I have installed. They're all kind of like vanilla plus type stuff, like they don't fundamentally change the game, but a lot of them are really nice, especially PermaDay, area actions, and Pak Utilities. This is the main one I use for like flying and stuff. And again, all that will be in the description below. But now, let's get started with our tour. And with this tour, we're gonna kind of go episode by episode here. So after episode 25, we had our storage room, we had our base, like the first square of it, and then the next thing we really needed were weapons. So we went downstairs over this way, and we just made a really quick weapons factory down here. We have a lot of coal and sulfur in the base because we're making turbo fuel. That was our, and currently is, our primary power source until we get into nuclear. So we needed a little bit of coal and a little bit of sulfur to scoot away from our compacted coal construction, and we scooted it over this way into our little weapons factory. It's not super efficient or anything like that, but it gets the job done. We just have sulfur going in, making some compacted coal with some coal. That makes all of the black powder we need. Yoink, by the way. The black powder goes ahead and goes over here, makes nobelisks, makes something here. What is this? Is this beacons? Or no, this makes rifle cartridges and beacons as well. Yeah. So it makes all this stuff, and all of it goes up into our storage room for when we need to blab blab some folks. Also, we have a mod that adds in a rocket launcher, so we're making rockets too, and we have quite the collection of them. And they're mainly for when we need a blap blap a biome out of existence. Rockets are very handy. And of course, once we got a few weapons under our belt, we went into the swamp and decided to go for a little bit of a joyride, connecting up a train system, killing a couple bugs, and then kind of leaving it be for the time being. We'll return to this in a moment though, because next up here, we made this new train station over by the 6 quartz nodes, made the train, made the bridge, and scooted it all back to base. Because after we're done our world tour, our next big project, and kind of our main project, was one of our first mega builds. And that was for crystal oscillators. That was our real big high level goal that we wanted to complete. And we needed somewhere in the range of like 1 billion quartz for that, give or take a couple million. So wherever we could find quartz, we got it, we processed it, and sent it on up our base. But also, as we're entering kind of the late game, we started getting to late game alternate recipes, and all of them require refineries and water. So if you want to efficiently make copper sheets, guess what? Refineries. Lots more copper ingots, refineries, Caterium, refineries, quartz, guess what? Refineries, and it's just an absolute nightmare. Not to mention oil, like, oh my gosh. Yeah, we found out pretty quick, we're gonna need thousands of refineries. That's not even like an exaggeration. We probably have more refineries in our base now than constructors. It's insane. And since we have a really tall base as well, we need to get the water upstairs. And I kind of figured that packaging the water would be the easiest way to go about it. So we had to make hundreds more refineries to package and unpackage the liquids. And I really wasn't planning on packaging too much water, so we had to fit in a ton of beltwork in a very small space. And let me tell you, I near lost my mind doing all of this insane beltwork for all of this water packaging stuff down here. And very quickly, we ended up making one of the most insane water packaging projects and belt projects I'd ever dealt with in my entire life. Like, actually insanity going on. But we also made an extremely important discovery, which will help you guys if you ever are packaging water and stuff like that. And that is a convenience trick that we're doing here. So with all of these bins, we have all of the empty canisters entering at random points. So at the bottom part of these storage containers, that's where water canisters will enter in. And then at the top entrances and exits, we have all of the canisters constantly flowing through the entire system, just in a big loop. And by doing things this way, whenever we package water over here and send it up, and then send the empty cartridges back down, they can just enter this system and it doesn't matter where they end up. Like, you don't have to match the packaging refinery with the unpacking refinery, wherever that is. You can just set up a system like this, everything overflows to where it needs to be, and you're fine. And this helps things out and makes things like a million times more simple. Because if not for this system, we'd have to mark like, this refinery goes to the 5th floor of the base, and it has to be the 3rd refinery from the left, and all this kind of nonsense. No, none of that. Just make a system like this, where all of the canisters are flowing through, and then periodically you just fill the system with more canisters randomly. So like, the canisters get used upstairs, they come downstairs, they enter back into this overflow, and off they go. One thing with this system though, is if you're building it, you need to fill most of the system initially with like a lot of canisters. So this is like 12 bins or something. We had to fill about 8 of these with empty canisters to kind of get things flowing properly. So just keep that in mind. After dealing with a bit of that though, we still needed more quartz and we needed a lot of Caterium. So we went on a little journey and we went from our main base over here all the way down here. And this area has a ton of good stuff. We got Caterium up here. We have quartz right up here, tons of different resources here. Like, this spot is nuts. So we built this super massive train station that does a ton of processing and collects us an absolute ton of water that we send back to base. And also we took this opportunity to go ahead and activate some trucks and send them to gather stuff for us. A lot of people don't like trucks, but dude, they're so much fun. We had to have them somewhere in our playthrough, and this was kind of the spot to do it. This area has some really nice natural roads, and it was really easy to set up the rest of the infrastructure too. So it's like, why not? Let's go for it. And you know what? It was a lot of fun. And it was cool to get some refineries built outside of our base, because inside of our base was getting filled up, brother, by all the refineries we had to build. So I was just really happy to build them elsewhere. And since we're gathering the water for the refineries right next door, it's a lot more convenient this way to process stuff than bringing it all the way back to base, packaging water and going through that whole meme. That was a nightmare. After I was done that belt work, I was like, no. Bring the refineries to the water. And I'd highly recommend you do the same. From there though, we went ahead and had a decorating episode where we built this Brandenburg Gate replica right in front of our base. It's kind of like the train entrance to the world, and I thought it looked pretty cool. Later on, once we actually start focusing on getting tickets, we're gonna be adding statues to the top as well, and that's gonna look super sick. But for now, it's just empty, and it still looks pretty good. So I like it a lot. Also, with this decorating episode, we are figuring out the second phase of our base. Because up until that point, we just had this cube on a stand. And we had to kind of spice it up a little bit. And we figured out how to transition from the cube up into this next space. This kind of mid-ground area where we actually have our Beast 3, our crystal oscillator production. So we'll get to that in a little bit, but we had to have the design there first. And also we had to plan out the space in our base for how things were gonna work out, especially our upper base warehousing area, which is right here. And it gave us a destination to put all of our materials that we're gathering throughout the rest of the world. But as we were stocking up on everything, whoa bud, we had to get started on the big spice. Oil, and specifically rubber. Oh my god, oil's such a meme. Because I got this insane message about how to transform 1 oil into 3 rubber or 3 plastic. Here's the diagram for it, and I made a tutorial specifically on it if you want to do this yourself. Be warned, it's nuts. You need about 84 refineries per oil node to make it work, so know what you're getting into. But because we're insane, we decided to embark on this extremely ambitious project, and we expanded our rail system all the way out to the Gold Coast across the map, and we built this, the city of Petropolis. This gargantuan project took 3 episodes to figure out and was just an absolute nightmare. I'll try and go over the basic logistics of it though. But starting things off just from the extractor here, everything starts and goes into this first building on the right of the city. This building converts all of the crude oil into heavy oil residue, using this alternate recipe that focuses on making the residue itself. So we make 40 residue per minute and 20 polymer resin per minute. And following the residue, all of the residue then heads into this next massive building behind here, and the residue is turned into fuel. And we have 3 massive floors of refineries that do this, and we use probably the best alternate recipe in the game here, which combines heavy oil residue and packaged water into packaged diluted fuel. This recipe effectively turns water into oil. It is super omega good. Probably I stand by it, the best alternate recipe in the game. It's amazing. And then all the fuel goes from that building into this tall, skinny one. And this is where things get really complex. Because the big trick in making 3 rubber for 1 crude oil has to do with recycling. And there's 2 recycling alternates where you can recycle rubber and recycle plastic. And we abuse these recipes in order to get so much extra material. So we're making plastic here, which is really weird because our end goal is rubber, right? It'll make sense in a moment. Because once we make the plastic goes into the final building right over here and is recycled into rubber. And we have 1,000,000 floors combining the plastic and the fuel into recycled rubber. And this is what we ship back to base. But everything gets super wacky with ratios and numbers because we have to send a portion of the rubber we produce at the end of the system, and we use the polymer resin we made at the beginning of the system to make more rubber. So we combine the rubber from the end of the system and the beginning of the system to make the plastic in the middle of the system. So it's like, what? What are you talking about, Kibs? And it's super hard to explain, which is why, again, I made that big tutorial on everything. Please go watch it if you want to use this. It's a wild one. Oh, and also this giant tower in the middle here is an airport. So we have a hypertube launcher that speeds us up to an extreme speed and then will fling us across the map all the way back to our base. And yeah, this is probably our biggest project to date that isn't our main base. This thing took a long time, but it was super worth it. Because after that, we just had to make 1 more train station here to gather a few more items up, specifically copper, and then we were able to start on the first phase of our crystal oscillator project. And this was all about making the AI limiters. I think we have about 64 assemblers here, all making AI limiters, all for this project. In fact, I write down all of my projects on paper here. Let me see. We needed 261.34 AI limiters. So that's what we're building all over here. And then that last train station is bringing in all of the copper for these copper sheets. So everything was going really well. We had everything ready. We had all the items we needed, the train stations we needed. We had most of the materials as well. All we had to do was start on our crystal oscillator project when a disaster happened. Our power went out. And a power outage when you have a world and base like this is an absolute total disaster. The worst case scenario that can happen in this game. Fortunately though, I knew this was gonna happen one day. So with our fuse box, we're able to figure everything out. This one power line right in the middle here is the entire power line for our entire world. This is the one connection. It's all centralized right with this. So we disconnected it, activated our emergency backup generators that we have inside of our base here, and we have tons of extra stored turbo fuel for this occasion as well. So with that all, we're able to fix all of the wiring, find the problems, and deal with it. But that all took like an entire episode. It was insane. Oh, and also in that episode, I randomly threw in that I was building this here. This is a giant water packaging station. It was initially just for our turbo fuel project, but it switched up just to package a ton of water and bring it back to base because we just need water for everything. So I was like, yo, let's just freaking go with it. And that's what we did. So I don't know why I threw that in the episode. Probably because I built this mainly on my Twitch live stream. And over there, I kind of work on the miscellaneous kind of projects. Just like this one, where it kind of helps us out in the future, but it doesn't really tie into much. So yeah, I suppose I should plug my Twitch. Yeah, follow me on Twitch. There's a lot of the behind the scenes that goes on in my world happening over there. But with that, we were able to start on our very first mega project, the Beast 3, our supermassive crystal oscillator production line, which is the first of our end game builds. So we started off by making the front centerpiece to our base here, which is, I don't know, it's just like 40 manufacturers all organized beautifully to make all the crystal oscillators since we had all the parts available now. Just took a little bit of time to set up, and the primary goal was to make it look as cool as possible, and brother, I think we accomplished that in spades. Everything is pretty well balanced as well. It's not like perfectly balanced, but generally speaking, it's dang good. And again, the primary thing was to make it look good. But with the front done, we were just getting started. We have about 140 so odd manufacturers making crystal oscillators in here, just with the default recipe. And for the next 2 episodes, we were just building them. And we have 3 primary sections, one of which is over here. Our next section is behind this giant wall. That's the front centerpiece that I was showing off earlier. Then we have a small little section tucked in over here by what is going to be our inner base spine. So all of the items for the future projects are gonna be going up this way through the inside of our base. But then we have the final and coolest set of manufacturers over on this wall, where we have just layers and layers and layers of manufacturers with belts going everywhere, bridges, and it's just gorgeous. This is probably my second favorite interior part of our base after our storage room. It's so cool walking through here, and I built it specifically with walking in mind, so we could walk through here and just look through all of the belts and the bridges, and oh brother, it's just so freaking insane. Not to toot my own horn, but I'm tooting my own horn. This is unbelievable. I love it. And after dealing with all of the spaghetti of getting everything together and where it needed to be in its proper ratios, everything ends up on one belt right down here. And we have 262 crystal oscillators per minute being produced. It's absolutely wild. And horrifyingly, I don't know if it'll be enough. Because right now, all of the crystal oscillators are just being sent to just this bin or the resource sink, because we don't have the next part of our base set up yet. And with everything active, we end up getting about 1,000,000 points per minute, which is, it's decent. It's not crazy, but it's decent. But most importantly, with all those points, we got a ton of tickets, enough tickets to make these 2 statues that stand in front of our base. And they're named Mio and Tuo, based on our Season 2 puppos. And I absolutely adore them. Now with our first mega project done though, we kinda entered a bit of a lull phase in our playthrough, because the next step was like supercomputers, computers, turbo motors, and all of the real late game jazz. So I had a lot I needed to plan out, and in the meantime, we finished some infrastructures projects we desperately needed, like a worldwide train network. So now we have a train track that goes all around the entire world. And for a change of pace, I decided to build on the ground as well, just to see what it was like. And honestly, I thought it was a lot of fun. I'd highly recommend everybody just builds their trains on the ground. Building on platforms looks clean and all, but dude, it feels like an adventure when you have to like clear out space and add in the tracks just along the ground along with nature. It's really fun, would recommend. But with that project complete, we can now gather resources from anywhere in the world, almost. One area we still haven't got to is the Red Forest, but we'll get there soon. Main thing was just getting our options open here. And with this loop, one of the first things we did was we went to the Blue Crater Lake biome and completely destroyed it. We gathered everything we needed, we processed a lot of it, and we sent it back on trains. We still have a huge project to do here though, and that is messing with all of the oil. None of it is being utilized right now, and it's going to be huge. Like a Petropolis level project built all over this entire lake. But I don't want to deal with that just yet. So we gathered up all of the normal items, quote unquote, processed a little bit of stuff, mainly the Caterium at the top there, a little bit of iron, a little bit of steel, and we're sending back those raw goods back to base right now. Next order of business though was getting into Mark V belts. We already had everything we needed. We're getting into the end game stuff, brother. So we unlocked alclad aluminum sheets and all of the aluminum stuff. And oh my God. First off, we needed bauxite. So we came back to this swamp, we had tons of rockets, we just blew up everything, scooted and looted, and then got the frick out of Dodge, brother. Loaded up all the bauxite we could and sent it back home, where we learned of all the good aluminum fun to be had in the game now. Because we have to make this alumina solution, then we have to combine silica into stuff. We have like a million things going on here, and aluminum is just insane, man. Absolutely insane. But we managed to figure it out. We got stuff pretty well organized in our base, and we got all of the alclad sheets. Because with the alclad aluminum sheets, we had the Mark V conveyor belts, which would make late game processing and stuff super easy. So we need to get into our next big thing. So I went ahead, unlocked all the rest of the recipes in the game. So we have the turbo motors, the advanced aluminum production. We unlocked some nuclear stuff, and we messed around with a mod called Hyper Boosters. And these you just enter and it launches you out at high speed. And this is really just a quality of life mod because you can make hypertube boosters just by putting a bunch of entrances in a row. And what happens here is your speed just kind of exponentially increases through each extra hypertube you enter until you just get flung out somewhere. So this one is pointing up for some horrifying reason, and let's find out why. But just for an example, we go through here, blip, 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 gets all super glitchy, and we're gone. Are we dead? Why did I do this? Okay, we're not gonna die actually. Can we not? Can we stop? We cannot stop. Okay, but yeah, hypertube boosters, very spooky thing, even in vanilla. And this hypertube booster mod does pretty much the exact same thing, except it's just one entrance. And I will say that these are 1,000 times more horrifying. The Mark IIs, well, you know what? Why tell you about how bad they are when I can just show you? Watch this. This is a Mark II booster on like normal speed. Beep. Are we actually dead? Are you kidding me, dude? Stop. Stop. Okay. Yeah, that's a Mark II on normal speed. I don't know why it launched us that fast. Usually it just gets us across map, but yeah, they're a mess. This is also why I haven't unlocked the Mark IIIs, because there's no reason, because you're seeing it live. They're horrifying, but fun. Definitely a lot of fun. After that though, it was about time to get started on our next big project, but to do so, I need to figure out the next phase of my base. So I didn't really like the design we had going up here. So I mainly focused the next episode on rebuilding and making this new design here, which looks a lot better in my opinion. And we'll continue building up from here. And also during that episode, I did some more water stuff. Like all the water that's being processed way over there is now being sent over by a train, and we finished up that process too. So that was all cool. But with that done, we had a huge decision to make because we had two options. Number one, we could go nuclear. So we make nuclear power plants, power for days. Or option number two, we start making supercomputers. Supercomputers, of course, though, are a huge undertaking, especially considering the scale of our base. And we need just so much plastic, dude. Of course, computers and all this stuff. And we're deciding what to do first, either nuclear or supercomputers. Personally, I wanted to make supercomputers because the nuclear power plants require supercomputers to build them. So if we didn't have that automated, it'd be a mess. But after doing some tests, we ran the entire base and it ended up taking about 24,000, no. It took 28,000 megawatts to run my entire base, everything on full blast. And that was not enough leeway room to work on supercomputers. Because with our cap of 40,000 megawatts, we just needed more. Because if we're using 28,000 megawatts with the base at full power, adding on the supercomputer production will be about double our current usage. Like, it's a huge undertaking. So we needed more power first, so we ended up going into nuclear. Oh boy. And the first thing we did is we needed to find a spot to make the nuclear fuel rods. Obviously, nuclear stuff, radioactive, not good. And we wanted to have the option of combining all of the uranium nodes into one production line. So the uranium nodes on the map are right over here. We have another one that's right in the middle of the map, and then one more that's underneath the map here in a cave. So 1, 2, and 3. And for nuclear fuel rods, how it works now is really strange. They've completely changed up how they work. So we're gonna be using this alternate here, and we need, of course, the encased uranium cells. The encased uranium cells are big spice because of the pellets. The pellets here need sulfuric acid. So you combine the uranium, sulfuric acid to make the uranium pellets and a little bit more acid. This is a whole new thing that I've never done before, and it requires a lot of sulfur to do. So looking at the map here, we needed a good spot with a lot of sulfur, a lot of water, and pretty decently close to the uranium nodes. So with the 3 uranium nodes here, here, and here, I decided we'd build our nuclear area right here, right on top of this lake. Because there's sulfur nodes up here, there's some sulfur nodes there, and there's a sulfur node right next to this lake as well. So we had sulfur there, we're on top of a ton of water, and it's relatively close to all of the nuclear nodes too. So this is where we ended up. And so far, it's been a fantastic place to build. I'd highly recommend making your nuclear fuel rods here. And this is kind of our current project that we're working on right now. So far, we figured out all of the sulfuric acid stuff, and wow, was that a journey and a half. There's pipes and madness going everywhere. But with the system we have down here, we're gonna be able to use all 3 of the uranium nodes on the map and make all the nuclear power possible in the game. However though, around this time, our game started crashing because there's a limit of how many things you can actually build in the entire game. So with all of this, with our base, all of the infrastructure, we started hitting this limit, the game started crashing. Luckily, I found a fix for it. It's a little unstable, but it technically works. So with that in mind, we're not gonna be going like full crazy with nuclear in this playthrough. Instead, we're gonna be only utilizing 1 uranium node to its full potential. We then went on to the next step of making the uranium pellets into encased uranium pellets in this area here. We got some uranium from the red forest over that way. Oh yeah, and we're making the electromagnetic control rods for this project back at base. We're gonna have to ship some crystal oscillators and these control rods over to that area just because they required a ton of resources, and we unfortunately didn't have enough there, mainly because we're already bringing a lot of the resources in the area back to base. So, kinda messed up there on the planning front, but it's been working out. And that kind of brings us to where we're at now. We need to make the nuclear fuel rods, and then we're gonna ship them back to our base, where we're gonna be making hundreds of nuclear power plants. And with that though, you're pretty much caught up on the entire playthrough. So I hope you enjoyed this recap, and again, if you did, please remember to leave a like. But now I'm gonna start getting into the nitty gritty about how to download and load my world if you wanna check it out for yourself. So if you don't really care about that, you can go ahead and maybe follow me on Twitch, check out my Twitter, and I'll see you next time. But anyway, if you're still sticking around, it's time to get into how to play on my world. I will say this as a super important warning though. You'll have to change some of your game files. You're gonna have to download mods, and you might just break your save, your game, or all your games. You might void warranties with the game, all this crazy stuff. I haven't looked into it, but if you're concerned with that stuff, probably you don't wanna download my world. Also, trying to load my save might just entirely break your game or your computer. Like, it's a bad time. You're going through an ordeal. So please, please take this as a word of warning. I have a computer with a 2080 Ti graphics card and 16 gigs of RAM. So it's a strong boy. If you don't have like as strong of a computer, you may want to reconsider. Now then, let's get into it. First up, you're gonna have to recode your game a bit. As I mentioned earlier, we are above the limit of items, or at least extremely close to the limit of items we can have in the entire world. So, in order to play on this save, you have to increase the allowed object limit in the game. I have a link in the description to a Reddit post on how to recode your game. And then next up, you'll need all of the mods I've listed below, like the mods that I am using, so that you can experience everything that I have in this world. Like the hyper tool boosters, and I guess that's kind of like the main thing, really. It's more so a convenience thing for you. And then to get my actual save file itself, you're gonna have to go and follow me on Twitter. If I have like a link to something that you can download in the description of my YouTube video, YouTube gets mad at me, so I literally cannot have that. It's pretty much the only way I can distribute the thing. So yeah, just go to my Twitter, and I don't care if you follow, I don't think you have to even follow me. You just have to go to my Twitter, okay? Just how it be. And then you drag and drop that save into your game save file folder. And then once you do that, you load it up, and hopefully it loads fast enough so you can actually play it. And the last thing, when you load into my save file, you're gonna be loading in on the exact opposite end of the map from my base. This is just so your game doesn't have to load literally everything all at once, and hopefully it's a little bit easier on your computer. I'll leave a little care package of things, a little message probably as well, and then you'll just jump in the train and off you go exploring. But anyway, that is it. Hope you guys enjoyed this little tour. Hope you guys stick around and subscribe to see the conclusion to this playthrough as well. But that's gonna be all. So have a fantastic rest of your day, and bye-bye.